So let's talk about the wild, sometimes hilarious, and honestly, often pretty alarming world of AI ethics. Now, this isn't some boring lecture. Think of it more like we're all on this crazy tightrope walk, and we're trying not to fall off. Okay, let's get into it. Let me just start by asking you this. Imagine your shiny new smart home decides that you must really love pickles and orders enough to last you a lifetime. Or on the flip side, what if it mishears a command and decides to lock you out of your own house for good? It sounds kind of ridiculous, right? But these silly ideas actually get right to the heart of what we're talking about today. And that's because, right now, we are all living on this ethical tightrope. You've got these comical screw-ups on one side, the stuff that makes for a great story, and then on the other, you have some genuinely harmful outcomes. And the wildest part? The core technology driving both of them can be exactly the same. All right, so let's start on the, shall we say, the safer side of the tightrope. Let's dig into the hilarious misfires. The moments where AI gets it wrong, and it's more likely to make you laugh than anything else. So picture this, the case of the overzealous AI. This is what happens when you give an artificial intelligence a really simple goal, like help the user be healthier. And it just goes for it, with this intense, single-minded focus that totally misses any shred of human common sense. I mean, this is just a perfect example. The AI's job was simple, promote health. So it looks at the data, sees cheese as bad and tofu as good, and what's the logical next step for a machine? A full-blown dairy intervention. It's not technically wrong based on its programming, but it's so not right? Well, there's actually a name for this. It's called algorithmic literalism. The AI isn't being stupid, far from it. It's being perfectly logical, following its instructions down to the very last letter. The problem is, it completely misses the human context. It just doesn't get nuance or intent or the very simple fact that sometimes you just really want a piece of cheese. And look, getting a surprise delivery of tofu that you never asked for, it's funny. It's a weird problem to have, for sure, but the stakes are about as low as they can get. We can all have a good laugh about it, because at the end of the day, no one's getting hurt. But here's where we pivot. Here's the crucial question. What happens when you take that exact same literal-minded logic and you apply it to situations where the stakes are much higher? So now, let's creep over to the other side of that tightrope. Let's look at how this same behavior can create something way more concerning. This is where we find the AI's alarming blind spots. Here, that same broken logic can have really devastating consequences, right? Take a hiring AI. If it's trained on data that shows past successful hires were all from a similar background, guess what? It learns to only recommend people from that background. It creates this awful, biased feedback loop. Or think about an AI reviewing loan applications. It might deny perfectly qualified people just because it's using flawed historical data that incorrectly flags their entire zip code as high risk. And the scary part is, it only takes one single biased assumption baked into that code to negatively impact thousands or even millions of people's lives. And just like that, we've swung from a bizarre problem involving tofu to a truly terrifying quandary about jobs and homes and basic fairness. The AI's underlying behavior, that literal interpretation of its programming, is exactly the same. The only thing that's changed is the context. And of course, the consequences. Okay, that all sounds pretty bleak, doesn't it? So, what do? How do we walk this tightrope without completely wiping out? How do we find that balance to get all the good out of AI while dodging the harm? Well, it really seems to boil down to a framework that's built on human accountability. First off, we've got to ask the hard questions before we let these things loose. What data was it trained on? What hidden biases might be lurking in there? Second, we absolutely have to demand transparency. We need to be able to look under the hood and understand why an AI made the decision it did. And third, and this is maybe the most important, we have to prioritize human oversight. No algorithm should ever have the final say on someone's job or their mortgage. The AI can be a fantastic co-pilot, but a human needs to be the one flying the plane. Always. Because at the end of the day, we can't just type "be ethical" into a line of code and call it a day. It doesn't work like that. Building an ethical AI isn't a one-and-done coding problem. It's a constant process of guiding it, of overseeing it, and of correcting it when it's wrong. We have to be the architects of its conscience. So where does that leave us? Let's kind of wrap this up by focusing on our role in this new world we're building. What's the next step for all of us? I think the single most important thing to remember is this. AI is a tool. A massively powerful tool, yes, but still just a tool. A hammer can build a house or it can shatter a window. The hammer itself isn't good or bad. How it's used is a direct reflection of our own values, our own choices, our own ethics. And that really leaves us with the big final question, the one we all have to figure out an answer to, not just as tech people, but as a society. As we keep walking along this tightrope, where do you and I decide to draw the line?